Hello and welcome. So happy you're here with us today. It's Margarit Brigham from awakenmagic.com with a season 2 of Be the Expression, where we share how we lean into love, and my audience can learn from stories from my guests of their experience, strength, and hope. So today, I'm so pleased to have Ellen Rogin. I heard her on an interview about generosity, the new currency. So this, maybe will be titled Generosity. How can it be a new currency? Who knows? We'll see what happens at the end of this interview, what the title will be. But let me introduce you to Ellen. So she is an abundance activist, a certified accountant and financial planner, and she is a best-selling or co-author of the best-selling New York Times book, Picture Your Prosperity: Smart Money Moves to Turn Your Visions into Reality. So she has left brain credentials, but she balances it with right brain, big picture ideas, meditations, values. She is comfortable talking about the power of compound interest as well as the power of belief. Her work has been featured in national publications as New York Times, Forbes, Huntington Post, U.S. News, Money, and World Report. So I'm as I said, so pleased that you said yes and you're joining us here today. Thank you, Ellen.
What a joy to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, thank you. So I love that, that your left brain credentials and your right brain. So, and we could say practical and energetic. And so I'd just actually like to start off by asking you, how did you make the shift and kind of bridge the two together for this beautiful balance that I think we're all seeking?
I started as a certified public accountant, and then became a financial advisor. And the thing that was so interesting to me, almost right from the start of being in this career and working with individuals, was how their thoughts about money, their beliefs about money, made a huge impact in terms of their results. And actually, in a lot of ways, bigger results than necessarily picking the perfect allocation or some of the other things that people tend to think of as the most important things with managing money. And so I did a lot of research into this, and actual research and then anecdotal research with the people that I've talked to over the years. And what I've come to know is that both the practical and the energetic are super important. I mean, if you think about, if you just had the practical side and someone was an amazing saver and great at investing their money and made tons of money, but came home at night and kicked their dog and fought with their partner, that would be bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, if you have someone sitting on their meditation pillow chanting Om, waiting for the universe to provide and not taking any action in the real world, that doesn't work either. Right? We live in a material world. And yes, there's the spiritual part and the energetic part and the ethereal part you can't see. But the beauty happens when you marry both of these.
Love that. Love that. So how did you really start coming about being the abundance activist?
Yes, so that term came to me, actually was given to me by an intuitive counselor that I know and have worked with. And it really came from the conversation of that many people, probably most people, especially when it comes to money and finances, tend to be so scarcity-based, so fear-based. And this may come from their upbringing. It may come from the media, right? Like, oh, it's so scary. The economy's bad. And it's just typically the way people talk about money for the most part is restrictive and scarcity-based versus more prosperity-based, abundance-based, focusing on what is possible. And what I know is that this idea of focusing on how there is a bigger pie that's always growing, not just like for you to win, I have to, for me to win, you have to lose, or there's only so much to go around. You know, if you think of it like with your thing with love, there's not just so much love. Like when you have one kid and another one comes, you're not like, oh, I gave up all that love for our first child. There's not much left for you. No, it just expands and expands. And it works that way with money and abundance and our prosperity in our lives as well. And so this a concept of being an abundance activist is helping to change that conversation. And I remember during the recession, I was out to lunch with a friend of mine who's an attorney, and she sat down at the table, and the first things out of her mouth were like, oh my God, things are so bad. My firm is laying people off. They're cutting everybody's hours. It's terrible. And she went, oh, all this like negative thought. And the more we talked and the more I could be a positive mirror for her, an abundance activist, this conversation shifted to, they actually have cut back hours, but it gave her more time to be with her kids. Her husband was a bankruptcy attorney. Well, that was pretty good during that period of time. And she ended up, not necessarily because of this conversation, she ended up starting her own firm as a result of what happened during the recession. And she's like happy as can be and super successful now. So, you know, when we can be there for other people to just show another side, and I don't mean like just being all looking at the world through rose-colored glasses, but if you can start to have someone see like what is really going well in their life, what can they be grateful for, because there's always something, it moves you to the point where then you could start to see solutions for issues and problems. And I know we're going to talk about generosity, but one of the things that is a big part of being focused on abundance is really being out there and giving to other people. And so one of the things that I did was create these wristbands that say abundance activist on it. And the concept is every time I do a kind act for someone, I move the wristband to the other wrist. Kind act could be smiling, writing a note of gratitude, making a charitable donation. You know, it doesn't have to be donating a kidney, right? It doesn't have to be huge. And the idea behind this was for me to just be noticing, how am I out there giving? How am I out there not giving? You know, and just starting to explore for myself how this can come to be.
Right. So how did you start that giving? And
well, actually, this whole concept was precipitated. My first book called Great with Money. My co-author, Melissa Burke, and I started talking about how really one of the foundations to create more abundance and prosperity in your life is to loosen your grip on money and to be a dedicated giver. We can talk about financial giving first, but just to put some context around this, during the depths of the recession, here's what I saw. People were hanging on so tightly to what they had, like, I'm not going to be okay, I'm not going to be okay. And if you're like this, with your hands gripped in fists, can you receive?
No.
Whoa, no. And then, you know, on the other hand, there's some people that don't feel good about receiving or having money or whatever, and they're always with their palms open. And if you're always like this, that's not necessarily good either. Like they're both important. So one of the concepts we talked about in the first book and continued it in my second book, Picture Your Prosperity, was this idea of loosening your grip on money and being a dedicated financial giver. So we have all heard that it's important to pay yourself first, right? To take money off the top and put it in savings. Hopefully you're all doing that. I know that doing that with your giving actually helps spur your wealth as well. So the concept is to take a percentage of your income off the top and put it away for giving to whatever that means to you, right? It could be giving to a family member in need. It could be giving to a qualified charity. It could be using that money to take a volunteer trip somewhere, whatever giving means to you. So what I started when we first wrote that book was I took 10% of my income and just moved it to a separate account, nothing super fancy. It was a bank account, earmarked for giving. And what it allowed me to do was a couple things. First of all, it had me and my husband be way more deliberate about our charitable giving. We were kind of like, you know, someone would send something, we'd send some money, and there was no real plan around it. And what I found is that when someone was walking in a breast cancer walk or whatever they were raising money for, I caught myself making bigger pledges to them because I knew what I had to give. When it was a charity that was important to my husband and myself, we could be very deliberate about what we could do to support a cause that was important to us. And I will tell you, through starting this before the last, right after the last recession, is probably, I mean, in the early 2000s and all through 2008, 2009, which was scary for people, I kept this going. And my income never really dropped, even when other people, especially in my industry, you know, their incomes dropped substantially. So I know what that does is it keeps the prosperity flowing. And the cool thing about a percentage is when your income goes up, you proportionally give more. And if for some reason it goes down, then you give an appropriate amount. And whatever percentage makes sense. You know, some people it's 1 or 2%. Some people it's 10 or even 20%, depending on your income.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. So let me just lead right into the number one question that I do ask everyone is, how do you lean into love?
Oh, I love this question. I love this question about love. And it's interesting. I'm going to frame it a little bit with the money conversation because I think people don't think of money and love together, but it's all just energy. And I know you and your people would understand that. And if you, I don't mean people who love money to just accumulate it and have power and have status. But if you were to think of money in an energetic way, and you were really, in let's say we personified it, and money was like a being, and you think how you are with it, I mean, are you loving with your money? Do you take care of it? Do you honor it? Do you respect it? Are you someone that's afraid of it? Like if you think of it as a person and all you were was afraid or scared or thinking it was never going to be there for you, like it doesn't really work. And
So it wouldn't want to stick around.
Why would it? Why would it? And if you loved it, and I don't mean if you think of it like a person, like, you know, if you love it where you're gripping so much, that doesn't work in a relationship either. But if it's just true, like, wow, how can I use you as a force for good in the world? And that is an affirmation or a thing I say really almost every day is like, how can I inspire, guide, and awaken people to use money as a force for good in the world? That good might be for
I love that.
your own benefit. It could be for
slower.
Kids. What was that?
Can you say that slower?
Absolutely. This is what I say to myself every morning is how can I inspire, guide, and awaken, it's actually millions of people, to use money as a force for good in their lives. How can I inspire? And we profit and grow together. Like imagine if everyone were to come from that energy of how can we use money as a force for good in the world, then it wouldn't be like, how do I have a fancier car to impress you? It would be like, wow, how do I take care of things that are super important to me and my family and my community? And how could I use my resources to make things better for other people as well? Right. I know that feels good to me. I don't know about you.
Yeah, and it's reminding me of something I used to do. I don't know why I stopped doing it, but when I received money, probably because it's so electronic now.
Right.
But when I had it physically in my hands, I would bless that money and send the love to it. So that would be rippling out and touching people whenever and whoever.
Oh, that's cool. So as going through the system, it's got some
love energy
Love that.
Going out.
Yeah. And one of the things about this that I sometimes forget that I do, because I've been doing it for probably 30 years, and I'm writing less and less checks, right? Because but I've always under my signature on my checks written thank you. Like showing the gratitude that I have the money to pay this bill or to make this donation or whatever. And it's just automatic. I sign my name, Ellen Rogin, and write thank you under my signature. I think these little things, I love what you did with that money, right? Where you could bless it. I'm going to start to do that again. We use less and less cash. I don't think my kids ever use cash anymore. They have like, $1 maybe in their wallets, but that's beautiful to just pass that energy on. And if you were money, wouldn't you like that too?
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. And I'd like to talk to you or ask you about the health benefits that I heard you talk about in that last interview.
So generosity is a really interesting thing. There's been lots of research on it. And we'll talk about, I want to come to the health benefits. Let me just talk about financial giving for a second, and then we'll talk about other ways of being generous, volunteering and doing kind acts. So one of the things I found really interesting in the research is that when you make a charitable donation, your brain interprets that as, oh, I must be rich for me to be able to do that. And you get an internal energetic buzz that's equivalent. If you gave a $500 charitable contribution, it's the equivalent of getting a $10,000 raise in terms of how your brain's interpreting that.
Wow.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. So, and so that I found fascinating. And lots of research has been done about generosity and doing kind acts. They found that kids that have more generative behavior, that means making things better for other people, as have less depression, they're more successful as adults, they're happier. They found that volunteering and doing kind acts has greater health benefits than like taking aspirin for heart disease.
Wow.
People that volunteer have greater longevity. They're clearly happier. When the dirty little secret about giving and generosity is the reason we really do it is because it makes us feel good.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that, but it's a kind of selfish thing to be giving to other people because it makes us feel so awesome.
So is there any real true altruism in the world? Or is it, do you think it's so we do feel better?
Oh, true altruism. I don't know that it even matters if they're separate. I mean, the first person that came to mind was Mother Teresa. Okay, maybe Mother Teresa,
yeah.
but like for us mere mortals,
yeah.
I think some people are leaning a little bit more towards that. It's part of their nature. Honestly, for me, I think it was more of a learned thing. I kept experimenting with this. My parents were nice, generous people. It wasn't like we volunteered as a family when we were little, or they even ever talked to me about making charitable contributions. I did this because I was experimenting and saw, wow, it feels really good to volunteer. We've taken our kids on volunteer vacations. We've been to, I do work in Ghana. I've been, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 times. I don't even remember now. And I'm part of a scholarship fund there. And the thing is, when we go and we meet with these high school and college kids, I've spoken at the high school in this local community. I mean, probably over the years, probably to 4,000 or 5,000 kids, which is interesting because I speak a lot, but that is not my target market are kids. Here I'd be terrified. They'd be staring at their phones the whole time. They're like beautiful sponges for information. And they're so grateful for us being there. But I'm like, oh my God, no, it feels so great for us. And, our kids have been there several times. And it does feel a little selfish and giving at the same time. Not selfish in a bad way.
No.
That it feels really good.
Yeah. And I don't know if you can answer this, but as women, we naturally give. How much do you think is a natural part of our disposition, or how much has been conditioned into us?
I think studies have shown that kids are generally generous, right? And so some of it's conditioned. I would say that women, one of the study on kids with generative behavior, they found for boys volunteering made a bigger impact. And I don't know if it's because girls are have a predisposition to giving because we end up being mothers and things like that, or if it's because it's more expected of them. So the interesting thing, I think, also with women, and I haven't seen research on this, but I know this from experience, is that in general, we tend to be better givers than receivers.
Yeah.
For all the reasons, whether it's because we were brought up that way or we're wired that way. And here's the thing, they're both important and they're both needed, giving and receiving. So you can, if people feel better from giving, it makes them happier and healthier, and you're not willing to receive from someone else, it hurts, you're hurting their ability to be happy. And it's really the same coin. You know, it's giving and receiving. They're part of the same thing. You can't have a giver without a receiver.
Right.
So one of the things I did with these wristbands also is if I received when someone really wanted to give to me and I knew it was going to make them happy, even if I didn't care, like my mother's been gone for a while now, 4 or 5 years. But I remember one year she really wanted to buy me and my husband an anniversary gift. We don't need any, thank you. She really did. So I'm like, okay, great. I wasn't going to make her not feel good for doing that. And that might be an example. It sounds silly, of course you'd want a gift, but that might be an example of moving your wristband. Like I was really receiving openly because I knew it was important to her. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And I think that as women, we can also test this a little bit, how good receivers we are. Women tend to communicate in compliments, right? Like, oh, you know, it's so great to see you. Your energy looks great. Or I love that dress, or whatever it is. And what often happens is we're also not always so comfortable receiving those.
Right.
Like I remember once I was doing some video shooting and I had my makeup professionally done. And the woman who was doing my makeup said to me, oh, you have really good skin. And I didn't say this, but I thought she tells that to everybody. Could I have just in my mind said thank you? Even if she does tell it to everyone, she does it to make them feel good. And maybe she wasn't just, I don't know. But we do that, or we throw it right back. Like, love your earrings. Oh, love that dress. Like, And so what I do often in my workshops is have people practice giving compliments and just totally being open to receiving. You know, just taking it in and not throwing it right back.
Nice. So you just like take a breath and
thank you. That's your response. Thank you. Because the other thing is, if you're not, in terms of being generous, if someone gave you a really heartfelt compliment, like, oh my gosh, your shows make such a difference, it's touched my heart, and they gave you like a really genuine compliment, and you're like, oh, it's nothing. Like you're really not, you're dissing their compliment. It's pretty disrespectful to not just say, wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to do this.
Yeah, that's good. And with being so busy, I mean, I know I do this a lot, especially like online. It'll just be like a thanks, right? It's, you know,
And
it seems short. Do you think they can feel it energetically?
it depends how you're probably giving it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And one way that you can maybe be more deliberate is periodically, okay, so I've set this goal and not actually accomplished it every day, but was to send notes of gratitude, like one every single day. I don't do that. And I try to do it as much as I can. Like today it was on my, have you heard of the 5-minute journal? It's this journal that I got on Amazon, and it basically has a couple different categories. You start with 3 things you're grateful for in the morning, 3 things that would make today amazing, an I am affirmation, like I am grateful, whatever.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, you write 3 things, 3 amazing things that happened today and what would have made today even better. So clearly today, one of the things I wrote was write a note of gratitude. And I try when I can to do handwritten notes because people don't always, we don't get mail anymore.
Yeah.
And, you know, really heartfelt, wow, you've made such a difference. Or even if it's just, I wrote 2 yesterday. I saw some of my girlfriends who I've been friends with since grade school. And we spent time together this weekend and they both got notes about how important they are to me in my life. It took me a couple minutes, but I'm imagining it's going to make them feel really good. And if not, I'm sure it will. But it made me feel good to write it too.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful generosity. Yeah. I love that. And can you imagine them getting it in the mail? Like, whoa!
I know, and I got this idea from a friend of mine, Yasmin, who you know, to really write a note to someone who maybe you haven't even been in touch with, but made a big impact in your life. Like, wow, I was remembering when you mentored me on this, and it's made such a big impact. And I just wanted you to know how grateful I am for you. And I did that with someone I haven't talked to in 20 years. This woman who, her name is Kathleen Gurney. She wrote a great book called Your Money Personality, and I hadn't talked to her in years, but I was like, you know what, she made a huge difference in my career, and I haven't really shared that with her. And I looked her up, sent her a note, got an email back, it got us back in touch, but even if it didn't, I had no expectation of anything resulting from it. So,
Right.
you know, it's an act of, like you said, it's an act of generosity, and I could have moved my wristband for doing that, but I didn't. So.
Yeah.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about how to use this in business.
Sure.
So the way that I've grown I had grown my financial advisory practice, which I'm not really, I've moved on into doing speaking and writing full time now. And the way, you know, for my speaking business has really been, how can I be out there serving? If I want more referrals, how can I give more referrals? And it's not a give to get. So it's not like, oh, if I give you a referral, you'll give me one, which is really old school way of, especially in my financial services industry, a way of doing things. But it's give to give, and it will always come back, but not necessarily from the same person.
Right.
So if I'm out there like, wow, how can I help you grow your business? Or how can I give a referral to someone else, or make an introduction of two people that really should know each other? If I'm constantly doing that, things will flow back to me. It is actually part of my marketing strategy to be out there referring other speakers. How can I do that? Something will come back to me. And it does a couple things. One, from an energetic standpoint, I just know what goes around comes around, right? The other thing is there's Dr. Robert Cialdini had looked at, there's a very famous book called Influence, and he talks about the law of reciprocity. So if I'm constantly helping you and doing things because I want to, not to get anything back, at some point, I've also built up some social capital that if I wanted to ask a favor from you, or if someone comes up looking for a speaker on.
Oh, what happened? Oh, we froze. I don't know if you're still speaking. Oh no, we froze. Can you hear me? Oh dear. Okay, we'll just give it a minute. Are we back? Is it just me? I think we've lost her. Okay, we'll give it another minute. Yeah, I think we lost her. It dropped her. Well, thank you for being here. Well, maybe she'll come back on and we'll see. So that we ended with the law of reciprocity. Reciprocity, is that how you say it? So maybe that's a cue to research that on our own. Geez, I can't even say it. So we'll just have to say goodbye from here. So in the spirit of generosity, I thank Ellen so much for being with us today and sharing her experience strength and hope, and how to be more generous. And I'm going to lead right into saying that this season 2 is being sponsored by the patrons for Cosmic Breath. And if this serves you and you would like to practice giving, you can, for $3, support the Be the Expression. Oh, are we back? Hang on, she might be coming back. No, I see your name. That's all I see. No, I still see your name. Okay, so big love, everyone. Thank you all for being here.